Hey, Sean, I appreciate you doing this. I cover the Mavericks for the Dallas Morning News, so getting to know Josh, and I'm curious. I'm interested in learning more about his Australian rules football background. What do you know about that, and what I guess makes him such a special athlete to have been that good at a couple of sports from a young age?
Well, I don't know a lot about Josh's background with Australian football. I clearly know, his background with, growing up in Australia and his family being from that country. I think the one point that I would bring up about Josh is he has kind of a natural way of being very physical. That may stem from kind of growing up in Australia and playing different sports or kind of a different type of sport. But he has no problem being physical. I think that's one of the reasons that he's such an excellent defensive player, ahead of the curve for somebody who is so young and thrives in transition. I think when you see the game really getting fast, that's when he's at his best. And clearly that physicality is really a part of him. And that's something that he'll never lose. He's had it for a long time. And I think that will really serve him well, especially as a young player in the NBA.
One more follow-up, if I can. We've only gotten to talk to him for a couple of minutes, but he seems to have a very calm, collected demeanor to him. What stories or examples do you have about, the difference between that physicality on the court and the way he conducts himself, as a person?
No doubt. I think one of the things that really shined in this draft for Josh is just his character and the type of person that he is, how he handles himself away from the court. He's a teammate that you really enjoy being around. He's about the right things off the court, incredibly bright, smart. School here at the University of Arizona really came easy to him. He was an excellent student and just gets along with, all walks of life, old, young. It really doesn't matter. He just has a way about him that's engaging. And I think a lot of that stems from how he was raised with his family, but also how bright he is. So, if you think about what I described, you have this very competitive player who's physical, and I think, the sky's the limit on where he'll end up as a basketball player. His best days are ahead of him, but off the court, he's the total package. He's makes great decisions, be really popular in the locker room. And the other part of it is like he knows his role. I think he knows his strengths and weaknesses, and he's very determined to work on those weaknesses and embrace those strengths early in his NBA career.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we'll go with Dwayne Price.
Yes, Coach Miller. I work for the Mavericks for the team website. Could you just tell me some stories of what you will remember the most about Josh, about coaching him? And also, did Jason Terry play any role in the Mavericks drafting him, to your knowledge?
Well, I think if you're going to draft a player in the first round with the pick the Mavericks had, you're going to do your research. And clearly, Jason Terry and how much he's respected in the Dallas Maverick organization. And then the fact that he's here. Obviously, Jason did not coach Josh, but he's gotten to know Josh through us as a staff and a lot of the things that we've talked about. So clearly, they utilized Jason in a way that they should have, right? To dig as deep as you can and find out the most on and off the court that you can in terms of your research so that you make a great pick. And Dallas made a great pick, and they utilized all of their resources. Clearly, one thing about this year's draft, everybody had plenty of time to really drill down on finding out who these guys are, where they come from, and strengths, weaknesses. And, I can't be happier for Josh and his family, but I also feel like just watching Dallas, their organization from Mark Cuban to Rick Carlisle and everything that I've learned about their organization with Jason Terry now being a part of our program, Josh couldn't have gone to a better place on the court and also, Dallas as a city and in the community. And And I think equally, the Dallas Mavericks will really enjoy Josh Green being a part of their future.
And the other question is, what will you remember the most about your time coaching Josh?
One thing I'll definitely remember is it goes by very quickly. You recruit these guys, and in Josh's case, we built a relationship that dates back to probably when he was a sophomore in high school. And the recruiting process sometimes lasts actually longer than the time you're around them. That's college basketball. But Josh has overcome obstacles. His family has really sacrificed a lot. They've relocated. Josh finished his high school career at IMG Academy in Florida, even though his family continued to reside here in the state of Arizona. So, he's been away from home, certainly been away from his home country. And then, he had labrum surgeries, which he's 100% recovered now. But it took him away from the court at a really crucial time, missing time in the senior year of your high school, missing, in essence, the spring and summer before you go to Arizona and play your 1 year. If you consider how much time he missed and the season that he had, and I think just where he's going right now, that's the other thing that I think we really tried to share with Dallas, that Josh's upside is even higher than maybe you realize, because in essence, he missed 8 or 9 months of basketball time in his senior year of high school and before his freshman year of college. So consider that, and I think you'll consider that he's healthy now, and where he's going to go in this next year and a half will be really exciting to follow.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, next we go SM Keeler.
Hey, Coach. Can you hear me good? Thanks for the time. Sean Keeler, the Denver Post here, along the same lines as Zeke. Obviously, the Nuggets fans are thrilled to see him. A lot's been written about his musical background, over the last few years, and back to Minnesota, too. I wonder if you could just address two things related to that. How does that meticulous personality, do you think, translate at the next level, or will translate for him, one? And how does his game on the court, you think, vibe with what say Nikola Jokic does, who's such an unusual kind of unicorn of a center guy anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy for me to answer questions about the 3 players that were drafted, and you heard the way that I've described Josh Green, and really starts with, he's a great kid. I'll just say the same thing about Zeke. He is a phenomenal kid. Comes from a great family, as all 3 of our freshmen who got drafted came from. But the one difference between Zeke and like Nico and Josh is, Zeke came out of nowhere. And when we began the recruiting process and recruiting Zeke, in some ways, we really wanted to recruit him because we wanted to have a guy like him in our program for more than a year or two, because it's difficult on our end when you have really talented players and they leave so quickly, right? It's not easy just to get the next version of Nico Mannion, Josh Green, Zeke Naji. So that was our intention. And, he was ranked maybe not even in the top 100 players in his class. And then he started to emerge, played for a very, very good high school basketball program and travel team program in Minneapolis. But his work ethic, family structure that he comes from, I mean, he might have improved more of any first round pick in this year's draft if you date back 24 months ago. And I think that's important to consider, because usually when somebody improves and develops at the pace that he developed over the last 2 years, you have to have really a great feel that that's going to continue here in the next year, 2, 3, simply because, he also was the youngest player on our roster a year ago. He's younger than Josh and Nico. So take all that into consideration. And, when you pick sometimes for upside potential and like where a young player can be in a year, 2, 3, which Denver is doing that as well as any franchise in the NBA right now. They really were on it. in terms of picking Zeke where they had. The other thing that I'll tell you about Zeke is his game really fits today's NBA game. He is at the beginning stages of learning a lot of things, but he can switch pick and rolls. He can hard hedge pick and rolls. He can guard people away from the basket, but he's physical. If you look at his body right now, I think he's about almost 250 at 5% body fat, and he's 19 years old. You kind of look at that. He can also guard people close to the basket. He's got a great motor. Can't say enough about him. In terms of like his musical background, I'll just put it to you like this. It's easy to do these feel-good stories when some of these young people can do more than just play basketball. You don't understand the type of pianist that Zeke is. He's world class. Like when people went to his home and asked him to play the piano for them, because in his home he has a little studio there. When he started, it just kind of like took you back. I mean, he could do about anything you can do on a piano, and I'm sure you'll learn that as he moves to Denver. But you're right, very disciplined upbringing, and I think that shines not only on the court but off the court. And there's a lot of media members here that covered both Josh and Zeke and also Nico this past year, and I think all of them will tell you that these are some just really great kids, and Denver's very lucky to have Zeke.
Thanks, Coach.
Next we'll go Kendra Andrews.
Hi, Sean. Kendra Andrews with The Athletic Denver. So another question for you on Zeke, and it's similar to what you just answered. But you were just talking about how quickly Zeke developed in that 1 year at Arizona. What did his development physically look like? And with that, what did his work ethic physically look like to get to be the Pac-12 Freshman Player of the Year?
Yeah. I mean, Kendra, the one thing this draft really speaks to is the depth and quality in the Pac-12 this past season. I mean, I think we had 10 overall picks as a conference, which was the most. We don't have a 16-team conference. We have a 12-team conference. So, you do the math, 60 picks, 30 first-round picks, and you consider how many of those picks were chosen from the Pac-12. Now you think about Zeke playing in the Pac-12 last year. We probably would have had 7 teams in the NCAA tournament as well. So it was a terrific conference a year ago, and Zeke's ability to produce as a freshman, being the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, just his consistent double-double shooting percentage. We've had some amazing players at the University of Arizona over the last almost 40 years, and if you look at Zeke's 1 year with us, freshman, there are very few you can compare him to. I mean, he had arguably one of the top 3 freshman years in school history. So he's a productive player. You're not just picking him on what he can become, but you have to kind of take notice of what he actually did a year ago in the Pac-12. The second thing is when you recruit somebody, a lot of times you engage in conversations with their family and him on what they can do in their senior year of high school to be the most ready they can be when they show up here at Arizona. And, oftentimes that conversation is good when you have it, and then, they go on and have their senior year, and we're coaching Arizona, and they're almost as a quiet period where they just are high school seniors, which is fine. In Zeke's case, he really it was almost as if he was doing our strength and conditioning program while he was a senior at Hopkins High School. I mean, he won the state championship in his senior year, and while winning the state championship and finishing up academically, his body just really changed because 4 days a week, 3 days a week, and he had a trainer, and again has a very disciplined approach. That physical maturity, coupled with the fact that he's so young, he wasn't the same person in the fall of his senior year of high school as he was in the fall of his freshman year with us. Like, a lot changed, not just during his time with us, but also prior to him coming here. And he's that type of person that whatever you tell him to do, he's going to do. Whatever role you give to him, he's going to embrace that role. I know that probably sounds like a coach that really loves a player, but like it transcends that. When I say it, the Denver Nuggets will really see that he is very, very rigid in doing the things that you want him to do on the court, which, every organization, team, and coach respects that. So for us this past year, he played both the 4 and the 5. We asked him to do a lot of different things for such a young player. And I think when he becomes a part of the Denver Nuggets, whatever they would like him to do, whatever they would like him to work on, he will do it.
Thanks, Coach.
Next we'll have Wes Goldberg.
Hey, Wes Goldberg with Bay Area News Group. I cover the Warriors. Talking about Nico Mannion, what is it about his game that you think will translate well to the NBA, and how do you think playing in the NBA will help him improve? What areas do you think he should be focusing on for development?
Yeah, Wes, one of the things that we're really fortunate to have in place here at Arizona, just, with the 3 guys that got picked, think about the 3 organizations that chose them. You have the Dallas Mavericks, obviously in the Western Conference, a playoff team. You have the Nuggets that are advancing in the playoffs and have had unreal back-to-back years with such a young group. And then obviously the Golden State Warriors, an iconic franchise, a coach in Steve Kerr that we know really well. But, Mike Malone, Rick Carlisle, Steve Kerr, the 3 young players that were drafted from our program, they're so fortunate to have them as their coach and to really be a part of that type of culture in the NBA. I think it's going to get all of them started off on the right foot. To answer your question directly about Nico is, Nico has a very strong arsenal offensively. As he gets stronger, and that's something that I think he will do just by getting older and working. I know he already has since he's left Arizona. His shot making ability will really stand out. I mean, he can shoot the ball deep, can shoot the ball off the dribble. He has an assortment of runners and floaters and finishes. He can really play at a fast pace, very comfortable, not just when he has the basketball, like a lot of point guards, but if you find him in transition or as the ball starts moving fast, a lot like the style that the Golden State Warriors already play, he'll really fit there because he's a dynamic shot maker and also is able to find his teammates and make the correct pass as well. We asked a lot of Nico, Josh, and Zeke this past year. They had a lot of very good teammates around them. But, if I compare maybe the team that those 3 guys played on at Arizona to maybe the team that an Aaron Gordon or Stanley Johnson, a Lauri Markkanen, even DeAndre Ayton played with, they had some upperclassmen that would have been drafted right alongside with them. This past year, we were totally dependent on the level of performance and play of those 3 freshmen. And a lot was on Nico's shoulders. And I think the percentages that he shot and a lot of the good things he did, for example, if he was a returning player in our program, I think, his percentages would jump off the charts. And I think that same progression will be made by him leaving our program and being a part of a new style, an NBA franchise. I mean, you'll see that he shows up with an incredible skill level. It's almost like a gift for him. And I think that fits Steve Kerr. I think that fits their philosophy. And Steve's very familiar with Nico because of his background at Arizona. And I think I'm sure they value that pick, even though it was a little bit later in the draft. I believe Nico will be a really good pick for the Golden State Warriors.
And then, I'm sorry, just as a follow-up, what were your conversations like with Nico during his freshman year?
It'd be up to be more specific.
You said you asked a lot of him as far as his coachability and things like that. I mean, just as, working with him as your point guard, what were your conversations like? How was he just, being coachable and things like that?
Very coachable. He's a very smart young man. Ditto, as I described, Nico comes from an incredible family, mom and dad that love him. And obviously both his mom and dad were great athletes themselves. His dad who played at the highest level, played in the NBA, played for some great coaches, knows the game. And so, Nico's been playing basketball since he was a youngster. He's played in the Fiba game, which I think will help him transition to the NBA. Nico loves to play fast, and that 24-second clock, I think, really, really fits him. But, we asked Nico to really embrace the defensive side of the ball. And if you would have evaluated him early in November, maybe when we scrimmaged or had our exhibition games, and then you watched him, down the home stretch of his freshman year in the Pac-12 tournament, month of February, he really improved defensively, in large part because he has ability on that side of the basketball as well. I think he learned a lot there, but really whatever we asked of him, I thought he tried to do it to the best of his ability.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Spears, you're next.
Coach, I think it's safe to say that you could talk about the 2021 recruiting class. Just what do you like about this group, and talk about what they bring?
Yeah, Justin, sorry I couldn't respond the last week or two. I wasn't completely sure that we had all the NLIs in, and the last thing I wanted to do is talk about one of them or two of them and exclude the third, So I'll start with KJ Simpson, who committed to us this summer. KJ is the type of player that we're really targeting right now, in that he loves the game. I would say that in the time that I've been here at Arizona, you always try to reflect back on those young players that work for us, that were productive, and it worked not only for us, but them. And the one characteristic that I believe stands out is, Arizona, it's a big stage with a lot of bright lights. There's a lot of eyes on our program. We're in a high expectation environment, and it just doesn't fit somebody who likes basketball. You have to love it. I mean, you have to just be consumed by it, and you have to be willing to put the work in. And KJ is that type of person and player. He loves the game. He's not just a point guard. I mean, we could play him in a 3-guard lineup as a combo guard with another point guard, or I think he could be the one and only guy out there to handle the ball. Very athletic, can be a two-way player. I would say that's the other thing. Guys that understand that defense is important, that have ability to play our man-to-man. I think those guys enjoy our program perhaps more than somebody that struggles on that side of the ball. So we want to get a balanced type of player, and comes from an incredible family, played for some really good high school coaches and a high school program that people really respect. And we're excited to have him. We really are, especially, with COVID, and, we weren't able to bring him to our campus, obviously, and for him to believe in us at that time was really important towards establishing a great fall recruiting for us. Shane Noel from Seattle. I think everybody on this call is familiar with Jalen, his older brother, who developed at Washington. And I got to know Jalen through Lorenzo Romar, who recruited Jalen in Seattle. And, again, Shane comes from a great family, lost his father early in his lifetime, which I think really motivates him as a basketball player. But, Jalen Noel, if you followed his career, he got better. He improved as he got older. I think Shane is in many ways a diamond in the rough as we evaluated him. Taller than KJ Simpson, more 6'4", 6'5", but somebody that has the ability to dribble the ball, pass the ball, play in transition. Again, back to that two-way player, a guy that can play our version of defense, and somebody who doesn't like the game of basketball but really loves it, that wants to do great things. And by the way, KJ and Shane, again, they come from winning programs, both their travel teams that they've played with, and also with their high school coach and program. Shane, very, very well coached there as well from his high school coach. So we're elated to have him. Obviously, Jason Terry was a big connection to Shane because of JT's relationships in Seattle and being from Seattle himself, which certainly helped make a connection between our basketball program, and in Seattle as a city. Shane's grandmother lives in Phoenix as well, which certainly helped us. Shane Dizzoni, he would have been the player that maybe we connected with a little bit later than the first two. But, Shane, the things that stand out in our recruitment of him is, again, has been in a very highly competitive setting at the high schools that he's been at, plays on one of the best travel teams in our country, and has been well coached. But, everybody talks about his motor and what a great competitor he is. Again, someone who loves the game of basketball and can play both offense and defense. We're lucky right now because he's at a prep school, Brewster Academy, where, there's been a ton of great talent that's developed. He's in kind of a highly competitive environment right now, which is really unique because there's a lot of high schools, as we know, that aren't even having a high school season. So he's practicing every day, which I think will really help him. But again, a lot like Shane Noel, you can't pigeonhole Shane at just one position. He could play multiple positions. We love the fact that he can play defense and offense. And again, a great competitor from the East that we're excited to have. So, we have three athletic types of players, versatile players that really can bolster our depth moving forward at the 1, the 2, and the 3. And all three of those guys can be on the court together as well.
Next up, Troy Hutchinson.
Hi, Coach. So I was wondering, with the 3 commits that just signed, is this it for the recruiting class, or are you looking to add more later down the line?
I mean, we've signed so many players in the last 3 years that it's always hard to say yes or no to that question. You have to take in information as it comes. A lot of things change over the course of the next 6 months. But this year, because of the way our roster is constructed, talking about this year's team, we're not going to experience the same type of turnover that we've had in recent years. So because of that, clearly we don't have the number of scholarships. And because we were fortunate to get these 3 to join us now, I don't look at this spring as being as crucial or, as just active as it's been the last couple of springs. If we add anything or anybody, I'm sure it would come, late in the spring, and I'm sure it wouldn't be more than just one player, and that player would be a forward or a front court player if we add anybody at all. At this point, we're looking forward to developing the young people that are in our program. Again, as we've tweaked things and tried to target different styles and types of players, part of what we want to have happen in our program is freshmen becoming better sophomores. Sophomores returning with more spirit, experience, and going from maybe our 7th or 8th man to a starter. But that development that you watched with Solomon Hill, that you watched with TJ McConnell, just using those 2 examples, with Kadeem Allen, we want to have more of that so that we don't have as much change from one season to the next.
Bruce Pascoe, you're up next.
Sean, along those lines, do you think that these 3 guys represent players that maybe can be 2, 3, 4-year players? Or in light of what you said earlier about Zeke, is it still
Right.
too fluid to even say that? How do you kind of look at that?
No, Bruce, that's a very good question. And you're kind of right in how you phrased it. It's almost impossible to pigeonhole these young guys into a certain length of time that they're going to be in your program. But what we can clearly control is the conversations and the way we recruit them, really making sure that we're aligned in them reaching their own goals and choosing Arizona to win championships, to develop, to really play college basketball first. And clearly all of these players, like if you love the game and you're trying to become an NBA player, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, one of the great days for a basketball program is the one we just had 2 days ago, when we had 3 players, chosen in this past year's draft. I mean, in some ways, it's what it's about. These guys being able to reach their goals and dreams through our basketball program and university. So you're right. It's not about a 4-year sentence, so to speak, where you come to Arizona and you're not allowed to leave. But we want young people to come here to get an education, to enjoy Tucson, to want to win, to want to develop, and to leave here when it's ready. It's last thing you want is young people leaving your program and it not working out for them, because when it doesn't work out at 20 years old, it's not going to change anytime soon. It's kind of like a different path they'll take for the next 30 or 40 years of their life. So when they leave here, we want them to leave when it's time, when they're valued as part of the game. So that's how I'll answer that, Bruce.
I was wondering, just following up on what you were asking about the NBA guys, if you've had a lot of months where I'm sure you've been talking to a lot of these GMs and scouts, and I was curious if you were surprised that these 3 teams picked these guys, and particularly wondering about the Warriors, if you had any conversations with Steve or anybody there in particular about Nico, wherever they, again, did anything that you kind of learned on the intelligence wire there or whatever surprise you or not surprise you about
I mean,
that?
these guys, you think about it, they have millions of dollars to make 1 pick, to make 2 picks. They're not going to rely on one conversation. They're going to rely on a lifetime of information and a body of work. We have some of the smartest people in the world that are a part of the NBA, at the executive level, general managers, owners, and then you have the coaching staffs. They dig in, they drill in. It's not a phone call of 20 minutes that's going to determine whether any of our players gets picked. It's going to be those organizations, really trying to max out and get it right. Our program, we have relationships all throughout the NBA. Jason Terry played in the NBA for 19 years. Jack Murphy was an assistant coach in the NBA. We've had so many NBA players, not just since I've been the coach here, but as you guys know, over the last 30 years as part of our program. So when they watch us practice, and that's the other part, everybody focuses on game production, but a lot of these teams, when they make their decisions, they do it in the months of October, November, not this October, November, but in years past, where they're at practices and they spend time watching these guys work and improve. So clearly we've talked to everybody in the NBA, not just the Golden State Warriors or the Denver Nuggets or the Dallas Mavericks, but at the end, it's up to them, those organizations, to make the one and only choice they have. And trust me, they're not doing anybody a favor. They get judged on wins and losses, and they're trying to make the best pick to help the win column.
Cool. Thanks.
Rich Herrera, you're up next.
Thanks so much. Coach, a couple questions looking forward to the games next week. Can you talk about the challenges of playing 3 games in 5 days with Thanksgiving in the middle?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I think it's a challenge that we're all excited to embrace, simply because it's time to have an opportunity to play a game. Fall practices this year were different in that I think we had a group of players that really just appreciated being allowed to practice because it was taken away from all of us. But as we approach, that number of 30 team practices in the last 42 days without a scrimmage, without our annual red-blue game in front of our fans, without the exhibition game, all 3 of those things really allow you to be more confident and the most ready for the beginning of our season. We haven't had any of those things. So, I really don't know how the games are going to go. You throw in the fact there's no fans. We're all going to be wearing masks. I would just say we're going to do the best that we can. We've worked really hard to be ready. We don't have the luxury of great returning experience. So if there would ever be a year that I think you could benefit by having a group of guys that have been through the battles of the Pac-12 that are older and experienced, this would be the year. So I think with the 10 new faces, 7 freshmen and COVID and everything we've gone through, we're going to show up ready to compete, but clearly I don't know what's going to happen.
If I could follow up, if you wouldn't mind talking about each team you're going to play separately so we could use it for the radio pregame show. Can you talk about NAU and then Grambling and then UTEP?
I don't know anything about any of the programs. I mean, they haven't played. We haven't really gone that route right now. We know a little bit more about NAU simply because we played them a year ago. Obviously, Coach Murphy was there as their coach. We have a relationship with Shane and their basketball program. They're in our state and they're first up. They're our season opener. But I don't know anything right now about any of the programs beyond that. I hope to learn more as we approach. We're going to be the most ready we can, but I don't have an answer for you.
Sure. One last thing. Are there any planned team activities or events for the guys for Thanksgiving Day?
We're not allowed to have any team activities or events. We just got in our locker room about 14 days ago. We wear masks. We stay away from each other. I think we're going to try the best we can to provide a Thanksgiving meal for each of our players in a to-go box where they can kind of take it to where they live, where they're isolated from people. But we're not able to get together in any group setting.
All right. Thank you so much.
Justin Spears, you're up next.
So for a lot of these guys, it's their first Thanksgiving in the United States. Not the ideal way to spend it, right?
No doubt. I mean, it's Justin. One thing is, COVID affects all of us. There's not that exception to the rule, whether it's country you live in or what you do for a living. Men's basketball in college is up next, but it's we have to do the best that we can. The 3 rules that we really try to live by. That's part of the culture of our basketball program is, lead yourself, try, make good decisions, know right from wrong. Our guys are really smart. They're good people. They come from good families. They know that the decisions they make are really important on and off the court. Number 2 is protect our basketball program and our team. Protected by, again, the decisions you make, choices, looking out for each other, making sure that we're all in this together and following the COVID protocols and staying safe and healthy and taking care of academics, at a time that also is very difficult when you don't have that in-person communication. And number 3, and it's maybe as big as any of them is, don't complain or make excuses. It's, all of us have it the same way. We're trying to do the best that we can. There are always examples of people in sports that have it worse than us. So let's just focus on what we can control, be the most ready we can be the most prepared we can be, enjoy the fact that we're able to practice and play. For our guys, they live in Tucson and part of a great community, but it's going to be different. We can all really talk about all the different ways that it's going to be different. But whether it's Thanksgiving dinner or the fact there's not going to be any fans, our challenge is simply to be the most ready that we can be, and then take it day by day.
And just going back to the NBA, throughout the year, Nico was projected to be, a top 10 pick. Why do you think he fell? And, what were some of the challenges that he had to face during, kind of this offseason getting ready for the draft?
I think it's unfair to say that he fell because, you're giving what's written before somebody ever goes to class one day of their freshman year as if it's accurate, as if it means something. You can't lose money that you don't have. You can't lose an opportunity that you were never given. And the mock drafts and where somebody says that somebody who's 18 years old is going to be picked before one day of class, before one game's played of their first and only year in college, it's ludicrous. It just is. So I don't embrace that Nico fell. And, the NBA draft doesn't always get it right. And sometimes what's more important than where you're picked is who picks you. And Nico staying here in the West, playing for a great coach, Steve Kerr, that I know for a fact loves the way Nico plays, respects him as a talent, believes in him, and they valued that pick. That's more important sometimes than being picked at a certain number. Because, at the end of the day, for Zeke, Josh, and Nico, this is the beginning of a long journey. And where they're at 5 years from now can be a much different place than where they were on draft night or where they would have been, before this year's draft. I went to USA Basketball, and I was part of the selection committee, and I watched Zeke before his freshman year at Arizona go through just a brutal tryout, and then make the cut to 16 for the under 19 team, which is incredibly competitive. A lot of players in this year's draft were in that tryout, and I thought he shined. I mean, he could have made the team. He got injured at the very end, but whatever those mock drafts and whatever was written in June before last year, I don't think they would have had him at the 21st, 22nd pick of the first round. So it's like, what happened with Zeke? He really surprised everybody, and his stock rose. I guess you could make that argument, but I don't know how anybody can evaluate Zeke Naji before he ever went to school of his freshman year. And, so many of our players, and their families, they lock into those mock draft and what's written or projected as early as like 10th or 11th grade. That's just something that's written. What means something is when those teams and organizations really drill down, watch them practice, watch them play in games, and really make decisions that decision is going to impact their franchise. Not until that day can you really evaluate, who's good, who's not, who you like. And then the other part with the draft, this year was really deep with point guards. I think Nico might have been, the 12th or 13th point guard picked in this year's draft. If he would be in next year's draft or a draft a year ago, sometimes those point guards aren't as plentiful, so he gets picked higher. But the only reason that he got picked higher is, a franchise needed a point guard, and there just weren't as many. But that doesn't mean he's going to have a long NBA career. This year's draft was really deep with point guards, and I think that'll play out. And I think you'll see that Nico will have a very good NBA career. But I would not at all embrace, and I don't believe that his stock dropped or Zeke's stock went up, or I don't know what Josh's stock did. They had no stock. They're 18 years old, and not until they practice and play and develop can you really gauge who they are as players. And then even that, the NBA draft isn't perfect.
Steve Rivera, you're up next.
Good afternoon, Sean. It's a question I ask routinely at the beginning of the year. It's about pace. The kids are loving it. The guys are loving it. Say they're working on it a lot. You're stressing it. Given the fact that you could go small a lot, just how is that going for you and the defense? Because you rely on that as well.
We've really invested a lot on the defensive side of the basketball in large part. We always do, but when you have this many new guys, I mean, you're really starting at home plate. So, we don't want to be vulnerable early in the year because we haven't covered things thoroughly. So we've really erred on the side of trying to be as solid as we can on that side of the basketball. And I still don't really know until we play games how it will work. Pace, we want to push the ball and take the first good shot. Shot selection is a big reason why you win or lose. And shot selection also impacts your defense. So whether we shoot a shot in the first 4 seconds or, we shoot a shot towards the end of the clock, we want to be efficient and we want to create good opportunities for our team.
How does JT help with this? And maybe he does or doesn't, but back in 97, 98, guard oriented with the Jason and Miles and Bibby and Michael Dickerson, you have a lot of guards like that. Is it kind of similar? Not that they play like that, but you know what I'm saying, the style.
I was going to say, you say we have a lot of guards like Bibby, Terry.
Not talent.
it's going to be a special year around here. There's no doubt about that. But JT and really our entire staff, we have a really terrific staff right now. We have unique experiences. Danny Peters was a part of the national championship team at Ohio State when Michael Conley and Greg Oden were there in the Big Ten Conference. He's been here at Arizona for a lot of good moments. Obviously Jason, both the 19 years he's been a part of the NBA and his playing experience here at Arizona, that's really unique as it applies to coaching our players. And then, our associate head coach, Jack Murphy, of just, Murph really growing up as part of this basketball program, knowing Coach Olson the way he did, watching those great teams, being a head coach himself, being an assistant coach in the NBA. Those three are the core. And really David Miller, who has a lot of responsibilities on and off the court for us, having been here as part of our program and being at Santa Barbara. All those guys really add amazing value. And so I would just say, we recognize that there are times we could play three guards, but if you play three guards, it's probably because they're your best players. And if that's the case, then I think you'll see that. But I'm not really sure how it's going to work out until we play games, because we just don't have a lot of history with the current team that we have.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean.
Bruce, you're up next.
Sean, you mentioned, you and a lot of the guys have talked about how careful they're being and the challenges of COVID and everything, but obviously there seems to be an element of almost of randomness to this. And so I was just kind of curious, especially when you look at football and the way college football's had so many cancellations and entire positions groups, contact tracing out. How does that make you feel about basketball and actually getting in 27 games are you still optimistic about that, or do you just figure, hey, if we can get in 2023, that's going to be good, or how does this make you look at it?
I mean, all that we can do is put a really organized, smart program together. And, it starts really with the leader of our university, Dr. Robbins, putting all the students in a position to get an education and to welcome them back and to do different things on our campus, which allows our university to stand out. Clearly, he's done that maybe as well as any president of any university. Dave Hickey and the team that Dave has put together in our athletic department, that we have a tremendous communication network, that we're all aligned and on the same page. The protocols we have, that we're really educated in alignment with how we go about them. Then you get into your single program, Justin Kokoski. I mean, that guy, almost from the week that Vegas ended in the Pac-12 tournament, has probably been up at 5 a.m. and left at 7 p.m, worked with every sport that's on our campus, tests our guys first thing in the morning every day. I mean, the amount of time that he's given to this university, it's unfair. It's incredible. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. And then we have our doctors, and then we have our staff. And then at the end of the day, all that sounds good. But like a lot of things, it comes down to the players that we have on our team, and, making sure that they do what they're supposed to do and take this serious. We've taken it as serious as we can, and so far so good. But as you know, that can change quickly. You're right. There's a randomness to that, with us doing everything the best we can, we could miss games because, our team gets it, and whoever gets it. So we're aware of that. Again, back to our 3 rules, lead yourself, protect our basketball program and team, and, no excuses. It's just, let's try to do the best that we can. And that's what we try to do every day.
I know you said early on you're doing pretty well with that. Have you guys had any other issues in the last month or so, as far as either a guy being held out for a while or a group of guys or canceled practice, anything like that so far?
No. I mean, we've had the normal injuries. Ira Lee is the guy that's probably taken on an injury that has held him out the most, and that is just he got a concussion a few weeks ago now, and he's missed that time. He has a history there. So obviously we're going to allow Ira to get, through all of his symptoms, a lot like we did with Stone Gettings a year ago, and really try to make sure that before he would be welcomed back to practice and able to play in games, that he's healthy and that his well-being is taken care of. So as you know, with concussions, it's a little bit like COVID in that, everybody reacts differently to it. You have to really rely on the individual and go to great care and lengths to make sure that they're protected. So that's where Ira is right now. And, will he be able to play against Northern Arizona? I don't really have an answer to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
So he still hasn't practiced or anything with you at this point?
No, he's missed quite a bit of time.
Do you know if he's getting close then? That maybe, I mean, if I assume you need him at least a couple days if he was going to play against NAU. You need him maybe Monday or something like that.
I don't have the answer to that right now.
Okay. And otherwise, Nate said I could fire a couple at you here towards the end. Last one I had was just, are you getting, well, actually, I was wondering, some of the guys have mentioned, because you have so many internationals, the transition from Fiba to college ball, and I know you've coached in Fiba, of course. How has that gone? And, do you feel like that transition is past for a lot of these guys, or do you feel like it's going to take some games where, Azulis gets a foul that he wouldn't have gotten in Europe that he gets here or something, and he's just going to have to go through that? Or can you have you been able to address a lot of that in practice?
Yeah, no, there's a difference. I think that all of the guys, the international players that we have made great strides in learning the NCAA game, the differences between college basketball and FIBA. But you're right, until we get into real competition with officials, I don't think they'll be completely comfortable. I would say that's way less important, though, transitioning from FIBA to college basketball than it is transitioning to be a freshman in college in a different country and playing college basketball for the first time. I mean, that in and of itself is a giant leap, and not a lot of guys on day one are ready for that leap. But they're making a lot of progress because they're great kids. They listen, they learn, they want to be good. And we've really tried to educate them on some of the real differences between the styles and really in some cases the rules.
And last question I had was just, and Ira maybe being out of this mix, but, because, we haven't seen any exhibitions or red, blue, et cetera, it's hard to tell from the outside what might be shaping up. I'm wondering on your standpoint, do you have an idea of who you might start on Wednesday or a 8-9 man rotation, or is it completely still up in the air, or kind of where do things sit? And have you identified any guys that are going to really be, especially the new guys that you're going to be able to count on?
Yeah, it's such a crapshoot. I mean, we could probably start maybe 3 versions of a lineup, like meaning that it's probably 7 guys in the mix to be the starting group. And, sometimes day one starter isn't who will start when we play after Christmas. I mean, there's just a lot to be worked out. I mean, I just worry, the most about our inexperience. I worry about our lack of overall depth. And, you worry about depth, especially in light of COVID, because, everybody has to be ready to go. You could face a game against a very good opponent, with 7 scholarship players. And in our case, a lot of guys that are in their first year. So,
yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, last one, Justin Spears.
Yeah, I know the NBA is the main selling point for, getting guys to, come play for the program. But I'm just curious, with the number of guys that you've had go overseas, do you address that with any of these recruits?
Yeah. And, Justin, I think that like kind of how you phrased that, all of us, when we recruit a young person to our basketball program, they're going to have their own goals and dreams. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they also have to look at our basketball program, the University of Arizona, the community that makes up our university, Tucson, who loves college basketball, that they also are signing up for an experience in college. where they get a world-class education. They have an opportunity to play in one of the best conferences in college basketball, the Pac-12. You know, they're able to live here in Tucson as part of a campus community that's just, you know, an exciting, special place. So, you know, you don't ever want to feel like the reason or the only or the one and only reason they came to us is because, you know, Josh Green, Nico Mannion, and Zeke Naji, they all were part of this year's draft. You know, I think there has to be some balance, that we're really after that. And the other part is, you know, it's a little bit like my answer to the question about Nico. Nico could have the longest career of the three guys that were picked this year. We just don't know. TJ McConnell is getting ready to enter year 7 as an NBA player. And if he stays healthy, he's going to play a decade in the NBA, and he didn't even get picked. So it's so much about the career they have and how long it is than it is, you know, where they are on draft day or how quickly they leave Arizona. You know, we just want to make sure that we're able to develop those young people that are a part of our program, that when we recruit them, we want them to understand that it's bigger than just their own goals, that they should want to play in a tournament, compete for Pac-12 championships, play in front of 14,500 people at McHale Center, which is going to happen again. You know, live here in the West where the weather's amazing, you know, play. I could keep going. So it's not just a one part decision for them. And I think if it is that, or maybe when somebody in the past has chosen us for only that reason, it doesn't feel right, because we're asking a lot of these guys. I mean, they have to attend every class. They have to be eligible. We want to move them towards graduation. You know, they have to practice hard. They have to be responsible. They have to lift weights. You know, if you keep going, all of those things don't fit just one goal. You know, you have to be a part of something that's bigger than your own goals. So when we recruit these people, it's also their family structure, their high school and travel team coaches, and sometimes other people that really have their best interest. But we want them to choose Arizona for that total picture, not just one part of it.
And just real quick, I heard your dog barking in the background a little bit ago. Well, what's the story with that dog?
Well, his name's Lambert. We got him, I think, a cardboard cutout in McHale, trying to put him as close to the bench as possible. You know, have picked the spirits up of our team. He's named after the great linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jack Lambert. You probably don't even know Jack Lambert, do you, Justin?
Oh, yeah, I do. I know Jack Lambert.
Yeah, I made some amazing highlights of him. So that's who he's named after, Lambert. And he's a Labradoodle. And, you know, he's the same every day. You know, we lose a recruit, we lose a game. Someone writes something bad about me. He looks at me the same every day. It's amazing. So if I could have 10 of them, I would.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
Thanks for your time, Coach. We appreciate it, and we'll see everybody soon.
See you guys.